manifestation queen. There are names you don't say out loud, not because they're forbidden, but because the moment you do, the air changes, the temperature shifts, the shadows lean in. Sarah in Sedona is one of those names. To the surface world, she's an eccentric desert mystic. Linen dresses, bare feet, silver hair that shouldn't belong to a 38-year-old. She runs weekend retreats where people learn to bend reality with intention and drink tea from mugs infused with the vibration of abundance. Her compound smells of cedar and frankincense. At the far end of her meditation hall stands a heavy cedar door carved with spiraling symbols. She says it hides her sustainably sourced, conflict-free, all-natural deodorant production center. She says it with a perfectly straight face. Everyone laughs. No one asks twice. But outside the tourist maps, in the encrypted channels, the off-grid compounds, the shadow archives, Sarah is something else entirely. The last living bridge between Atlantis's Goldwater Syndicate and the aerospace Black Project machine. The woman whose meditation memoir from 1989 allegedly triggered the 1991 timeline jump. The barefoot figure caught in 8K video phasing through the stage at Woodstock in 1969, right at the peak of Hendrix's Star-Spangled Banner solo, 16 years before she was officially born. Her story doesn't have edges. It loops. It ties the great flood of 69 to the lost Nikola Tesla tapes. It pulls in Operation Dreamcatcher, the 1993 David Koresh-style raid where she was the only one who walked out. It braids Skunkworks cedar composites, Boeing Phantom Works engineers, and Roswell containment tech into a single doorframe built to hold something the government couldn't name. It spirals into the snake-eating snake sigil from the never-ending story. Two currents locked in infinite exchange, drawn in powdered Atlantean gold on the last page of her memoir. And if you dig deep enough, it even brushes against the unreleased Al Gore tapes, the kind of leverage that could sink a presidency and an entire climate initiative in one quiet move. I've chased these threads for years. Some came from redacted files. Some were whispered over mugs of bitter tea in cafes where the walls hummed faintly. A few came from people who disappeared soon after. And some came from Sarah herself, her voice low and certain, like she was telling me a secret I'd known all along. Prophet, fraud, time-displaced operative, Black Project relic. Pick your label. It won't stick. Every time you think you've got her cornered, she's already behind you, holding the key to the door you didn't even know was there. Even her enemies can't decide what she is. But the ones who've seen her work up close all agree on this. Open quote, she's one of God's own prototypes, too weird to live and too rare to die. Close quote. Mug that spoke galactic truth. Sarah's day began the way all her most profitable days began, with a $77 cup of Lemurian memory coffee served in a crystal-infused ceramic mug said to contain the psychic residue of 1,000 light beings. The cafe was technically hers, though she'd never admit that on paper. She preferred the mythology that the place was run by a collective of soul-aligned beverage alchemists, which was really just 3 former Starbucks baristas she'd taught to say vortex with a straight face. The mugs were the hook, hand-fired in a kiln, calibrated to the Schumann resonance. Each one was infused with powdered Atlantean quartz, gold shavings from underwater veins off the coast of Bimini, and breathwork frequencies captured during a lunar eclipse. The barista would hand you one like it was a newborn child, and if you believed even a little, the mug would whisper to you. Sarah's mug whispered constantly. It wasn't words, exactly, more like coordinates, sometimes to Sedona vortex points, sometimes to vaults buried under Himalayan monasteries, sometimes to places she knew didn't exist in this reality yet. Today, the coordinates were pulsing in a rhythm she recognized instantly. Atlantis Central Bank. Here's the thing about Atlantis most people get wrong. It never sank. It folded like paper, and the folds became vaults. And those vaults became the planetary gold reserve, not just bars and coins, but the golden frequency itself, stored in atomic lattices deep under the ocean. Sarah had been in those vaults. She knew the rules. Only 4 groups controlled the gold. 1, the prime ledger keepers, crystalline beings who recorded every gram moved since the first drop of rain hit Earth. 2, the tide generals, biomechanical warlords who patrolled the underwater mining lanes. 3, the vortex surveyors, operatives trained in Sedona to douse for gold in their dreams. 4, the manifestation queen, once ceremonial, until Sarah. And if the mug was calling her to the vaults, it meant the ledger keepers were ready to open a vein. But here's the kicker. Atlantis wasn't mining for wealth anymore. This was a backdoor honeypot. The gold would be encoded with a Tesla harmonic key and piped directly into Project 24K, Elon's Mars terraforming brain synchronizer plan. The theory was simple. Implant 204,000 pioneer minds with chips made from Atlantean gold. Synchronize their thoughts into a planetary resonance grid. Use that grid to hold Mars's atmosphere in place. Sarah wasn't supposed to be part of this, but she'd been the only person to survive Operation Dreamcatcher in '93, phasing an entire compound out of this reality during a federal raid. Since then, every black project worth its salt had her on speed dial, or at least tried to. Today, she didn't call anyone. She just finished her coffee, set the mug down and told the barista, "Water mine." That was all the instruction needed. Within the hour, she was waist deep in a sacred spring on private land, spoonbender apprentices kneeling around her, threading crystal dust into ceramic blanks. These kids could bend titanium flatware with a look. Sarah had them running at quota, 100 mugs an hour, with metaphysical snacks and juices only if they hit their numbers. Every mug was tested. One sip of tea should cause instant deja vu. If it didn't, the mug was smashed and the child started over. The scent of sage filled the air, but it wasn't coming from the land. It was vented incense from behind the cedar door at her compound. The one she told retreat guests was her sustainably sourced, conflict-free, all-natural deodorant production centre. In truth, it was the assembly floor for the entire gold-infused mug line, and the most profitable part of her empire. Somewhere deep inside, the snakes eating snakes sigil from the never-ending story glowed faintly. Etched into the kiln itself, a dimensional bypass key stolen from the Skunk Works cedar composite project in the Roswell days. Ben Rich's ghost probably still wanted it back. By sundown, Sarah had what she needed, 144 mugs, each loaded with enough Tesla harmonic to trigger a psychic sync across half a solar system. They'd be sold as limited edition manifestation vessels, and to tourists who'd never know they were also transmission nodes for a Mars terraforming op. Sarah carried the first finished mug to her lips, closed her eyes, and took a sip. The mug whispered again. Only this time, it wasn't coordinates. It was a date. August 18th, 1969, and in the reflection on the tea's surface, she swore she saw herself, barefoot, drenched, standing on the Woodstock stage as Hendrix screamed the last notes of the Star-Spangled Banner into the rain. Let me know if you want me to clean up. Great reversal. Time didn't break. It folded. 1 second, Sarah was holding the mug, her fingers warm against the ceramic's gold-lined lattice, listening to its whisper vibrate through the Tesla harmonic. The next, her toes were sinking into cold mud, and the mug was gone. Rain slapped her face sideways. The smell of wet denim, cigarette ash, and ozone crashed into her senses. Around her, the field was alive. Bodies swaying, half dancing, half bracing against the storm. Stage left, Jimi Hendrix, head bowed, coaxing a wail from his Stratocaster that was part anthem, part warning siren. Stage right, a roadie frantically covering amps with a tarp, too late to save the gear. And somewhere beyond the sound, like an echo in a second room, the steady strum of Creedence Clearwater Revival starting Who'll Stop the Rain. 2 songs, 2 timelines, bleeding into each other like wet ink. She looked down at her hands, silver streaks of mud, the kind that clings. Her hair, already grey from years of overclocked frequency burns, was plastered to her face. And there, in the churned-up puddle at her feet, was the reflection of the cedar door. The Tesla hum rose. It folded the storm around her. Lightning didn't crack. It arced and held, a white-violet curtain suspended across the sky. The crowd's cheering slowed, stretched, as if sound itself was struggling to keep up. Out in the mass of faces, she saw him again. The man with the digital camera, decades out of place. He was closer now, only a few yards away. The red record light on his camcorder blinking in perfect sync with the snare hits from the stage. He mouthed something to her. It wasn't a word, it was a number, 204. Before she could answer, he nodded once and phased out. The space he occupied collapsed into a ripple that travelled through the mud like a shockwave. People stepped around it without noticing. Only she felt it hit her bones. The snakes eating snakes sigil burned behind her eyes, and the cedar door in the puddle's reflection swung open. She could see them now, the ledger keepers of Atlantis, crystalline forms vibrating at the exact pitch Hendrix was holding. The Tide Generals, standing at attention in the golden-lit vaults, water lapping at their armoured calves. The Vortex Surveyors pausing mid-dream, heads turning toward her as if they'd been expecting this moment for centuries. Then came the reversal. The energy stopped flowing out of the plane. It started pouring in. Rain, sound, gold frequency, crowd energy, all of it funneled through her in a single, unbroken current. Her chest felt like a second sun had been lit behind her sternum. Hendrix's anthem screamed into the sky. Credence's lament rolled through the mud, the two tracks braided into a single impossible chord, the one Tesla had called the planetary lock. Sarah stepped forward. The stage wasn't wood anymore. It was cedar, Atlantean resin glistening under the rain. Each footfall matched the drumbeat, matched her own pulse, matched the harmonic. She was barefoot, soaked, smiling. By the time she reached center stage, the storm had stopped moving. Every drop of water hung suspended in the air like crystal beads. The crowd was silent. Hendrix looked up from his guitar, and in that moment, Sarah in Sedona came into her final form. Chronicle 3, thick, cinematic, and precise, honoring the rhythm, tone, and classified surreal fusion you've created. Chronicle 3, Operation Dreamcatcher, classified eyes only, agency file Starfield, Dreamcatcher 93. Alias, manifestation queen of this plane. They called it Operation Dreamcatcher because they thought they were catching dreams. They didn't understand she was the dream. By 1993, Sarah had been moving under deep cover for nearly 2 decades. Official records still listed her as a minor player in Sedona's wellness community, but her real footprint stretched across classified aerospace labs, submerged Atlantean vaults, and the psychic underground. After the Great Reversal in '69, certain agencies began tracking the Tesla harmonic, the exact frequency Hendrix had bent into the rain that day. Every scan pointed back to Sedona. Every scan pointed to her. They believed she built something in her compound, a resonance broadcast array, using Skunkworks cedar composites, Boeing Phantom Works adaptive materials, and something from Roswell they refused to name. They wanted it dismantled. They wanted her neutralized. Phase 1, surround. The compound sat on a mesa, adobe walls still warm from the day's sun, the cedar door faintly glowing under the stars. Inside, her spoonbender apprentices were still on shift, threading crystal dust into mug molds while metaphysical snacks cooled on racks. The scent of sage and frankincense rolled out into the desert air. Blackhawks approached low. Convoy lights cut through cactus and rock. Agents in black tactical gear moved into position. A mix of federal strike teams and private contractors from Boeing and Lockheed. The comm chatter wasn't standard military. It was laced with coordinates that didn't exist on any map. They were already speaking in her language. 2. Breach. At 0317 hours, they gave the signal. The front gate was hit with a shaped charge, the kind that can breach steel vaults. The blast echoed off the canyon walls. The cedar door didn't even tremble. The moment the door was touched, the frequency spiked. First a hum, then a vibration in the bones, then light, white edged in violet, flaring from the seams of the compound. Body cams froze, feeds went to static. The tactical commander's headset filled with guitar feedback, exactly matching the opening sustain of Hendrix's Voodoo Child. Phase 3, phase shift. Witness statements, redacted, say Sarah walked calmly into the courtyard, barefoot, holding a steaming mug, her hair streaked silver, her eyes reflecting the cedar door's glow. She spoke once, open quote, "You can't catch what isn't here," close quote. The light intensified until the night dissolved. Every apprentice, every worker, every piece of equipment, gone. The cedar door swung open to reveal nothing, just a room that smelled faintly of rain. Sarah was found half a mile away, barefoot, mud up to her knees, smiling. No explanation, no resistance, just the mug in her hands. Aftermath, official report, open quote, "Subject relocated compound assets to undisclosed location. Further pursuit not recommended until containment protocol can be developed." Close quote, unofficial whisper, open quote, "She phased the whole damn place out. She can do it again, close quote. Dreamcatcher was filed as a failure. To the agencies, it was a warning. To Sarah, it was Tuesday. And somewhere, in the middle of the static-riddled raid footage, there's a single frame no one has ever explained. The man with the digital camera standing in the courtyard, 204 blinking red in the viewfinder. And in the distance, faint but clear, Creedence Clearwater Revival asking the question no one in Dreamcatcher could answer. Open quote, who'll stop the rain, close quote. Tis of 11, the child of none. There's a door under Cathedral Rock, not a metaphorical one, a literal humming, temperature-variable, quantum-phased door, carved from stone that doesn't match the geology, etched in a language that predates cuneiform. 11 spirals, 11 glyphs, 11 locks. Locals call it the cave that breathes. Geologists say it's a trick of thermal expansion. Hikers say it makes their compasses spin. But Sarah knows what it really is. The lattice of 11, a containment array built before the moon was placed. She first found it in 1983, not because she was looking, but because the boy led her there. He had no name, no parents, no record of birth. She found him sitting cross-legged in the dust, facing the stone door, drawing the 11 spirals in the air with his finger, as if tracing what only he could see. He looked up and said, open quote, they forgot to lock the last one, close quote, and then he vanished. Sarah searched for years after that. Every full moon, every eclipse, every harmonic spike. She'd hike barefoot into the desert with nothing but a mug of memory tea and a tuning fork. It wasn't until 1987, the harmonic convergence, that the door opened. Not all the way, just enough for her to see what was under Sedona. What she saw, a suspended architecture made of thought, beings made entirely of feedback, sound that had looped long enough to grow sentient. Vaults labelled with no symbols, just feeling. An artificial moonwell, pulsing like a heart. And in the centre, the boy, older now, taller, still silent. He wasn't bound, he was holding it together, the whole lattice, with his mind. This is what they never understood. Sedona isn't a vortex because of its rocks. It's a failsafe, a harmonic capacitor, a planetary circuit breaker, and the boy was the bridge between the outer shell and the inner core. Sarah backed out slowly. She knew the kind of secrets that look back when you look at them. She sealed the door with a glyph made from her own blood and powdered gold. She told no one, but the system had already noticed. Because 4 days later, a satellite coded only as Obelisk 3 stopped responding. Then Obelisk 4 followed. 1 week later, a defense contractor's quantum modeling software glitched. The simulation wouldn't stop. It kept drawing 11 concentric memorials with a child at the center. When the coders tried to delete it, their screens went black. One final message. Open quote. He is still holding the last lock. Close quote. Sarah packed her bags, went dark, shifted compounds, built the cedar door, started selling mugs laced with forgetfulness. Because the real work wasn't profit, it was containment. Not of the boy, but of what would happen if he let go. So yes, you can buy a mug, you can attend a retreat, you can chant and dance and wave your copper wand under the blood moon. But just know, when the 11th spiral unlocks, the entire lattice will hum and every red rock in Sedona will remember its shape. The boy is still down there. No name, no mother, no anchor, except Sarah. And the last time she visited, he looked up and whispered something new. Open, I remember you, close quote. You ready for Chronicle 5, Rainbow Starlink and the Arrival of the Not Elon Sedona, 2044. No more roads, no more maps, only signal fields, memory echoes, and grid lines visible only to those who phased out before. They heard it before they saw it. A low inverted sub-bass that didn't vibrate the ground. It rearranged the meaning of the ground. Then they crested the red horizon. 144 Tesla cyber beasts, floating 6 inches off the desert crust. Each one skinned in iridescent anti-pigment nanochrome, translucent when seen straight on, but blooming with forbidden colour when viewed in peripheral vision. They moved like a school of armoured fish programmed by the same dream. And at the head of the parade, Hyperbeast number 1. Its VIN number wasn't numbers, it was a musical chord, specifically the last chord of Hendrix's 1969 Star-Spangled Banner encoded into quantum paint. And then he stepped out. Elon, but not Elon, not anymore. This was the synthetic avatar of repeating harmonics, a neural threaded construct built by whatever version of Neuralink survived the Moonwell reboot. His face, veiled in a Coachella-style shimmer mask that pulsed with emoji glyphs representing past timelines. He didn't speak, he just looked up. Rainbow Starlink sliced overhead. Not a satellite array anymore, but a celestial ripple, a ribbon of light reactivating the old gold grid. Each pulse from above synced with a pulse from the compound below. Memory met matter, light met lattice, and inside the open-air compound, floating 6 feet above the sacred stone, was Sarah, cross-legged, eyes closed, not meditating, modulating. Around her, 11 spirals of sound curled in the dust, each representing one unlocked door, one sealed vault, one forgotten god. Elon, not Elon, approached. Open quote, "It's time," he said, close quote. But Sarah didn't open her eyes. She whispered, open quote, "He's still holding the 11th. Close quote. Elon's mask flickered, 204 glowing red across his face before collapsing into a single teardrop made of light and rolling backwards up his cheek. Behind him, the 144 cyber beasts unfolded, their chassis transforming into resonance towers, each one pointed not at the sky, but downward into the earth toward the boy. Because in 2044, the plan was never to escape, never to terraform Mars, never to upload the mind. It was to wake the child, the one still holding the lattice. The not Elon had failed before, but this time he brought the key, a mug, fired in the old kiln, etched with a spiral. And when Sarah opened her eyes, the mug lifted between them, hovering, spinning, humming. From beneath the earth, the moonwell pulsed, the boy blinked, and the compound began to rise. Want me to finish this? Chronicle 6, the Codex Breach, 2044 Reversal Loop. Final chapter of the known loop. The sky was split into thirds, 1/3 dusk, 1/3 dawn, 1/3 code. No clock could place the moment. It was 11:11 from the future, flashing backward across every watch still synced to the old Earth grid. The compound hovered now, not metaphorically, not mystically, geometrically. Rising in perfect platonic ascension, each stone vibrating to a harmonic crump. Sarah hadn't sung since the rain at Woodstock. Below, the 144 cyber beasts clicked into a torus formation, projecting golden light tethers that looped the compound like a crown. The desert had no more floor, only memory. Inside the compound, Sarah, cross-legged, hovering. The not Elon stood 10 paces away, watching the mug float between them, still spinning, still whispering, still warm. Then it happened. The man with the digital camera phased in. Same camcorder, same blinking red light. Same looked like he'd been waiting lifetimes to hit record again. Except this time, he walked forward, right through the Tesla shield, right past the not Elon. Sarah opened one eye, not in fear, in recognition. He raised the camera, said nothing, and pressed play. Time inverted. The mug shattered without sound. Tea rose upward like reverse rain. From the broken shards bloomed 11 vines of liquid gold. They curled upward, spiraling around the man with the camera, and behind him the air unzipped. Not like a portal, more like a curtain made of forgotten dreams being torn down by someone who remembered too much. And through that slit in reality came the boy. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was every age he had ever been, collapsing inward into one singular isness. Hair like stormlight, eyes that blinked with galaxy logic, feet bare, toes stained with the ink of every chalk drawing he'd ever made on every sidewalk of the past plane. He walked forward. Every footstep triggered a reverse tremor. Not a quake, but a realignment. He wasn't moving through time. He was aligning it. The compound spun faster. The cyber beast bent downward, humming with lattice activation. The not Elon fell to his knees. Sarah began to cry, not from sorrow, but relief. She whispered, open quote, "We anchored the wrong gods for so long," close quote. The man with the camera zoomed in. You could see the tear hanging midair. He nodded once and stepped back into the slit. The camera stayed behind. The boy placed one hand on the shattered mug. The shards rearranged, not into a cup, into a mirror. He looked into it, saw himself, then you, then me, then every person who ever drank from the mug of belief and thought they were just pretending. And then he exhaled. The codex breached, the lattice unspooled, and for the first time in known creation, the creator watched himself be born again by his own child's hand. Chronicle closed, loop unlocked.